All right, welcome back to Houston, Texas, as we continue the 2018 Football Media Day. Beauty shot of the Bayou City, fourth largest city in America. It's good to be here for the Southland Conference Football Media Day. We're at the Hilton Post Oak here, Galleria, Southwest Houston area, as we continue a busy morning, and we continue now with a busy afternoon as well, as we continue to get you ready for a new 2018 football season. Right now, we continue with a look at the Lumberjacks from Stephen F. Austin. All right, take a look at the quick facts for Stephen F. Austin. 22 starters returning, 11 on the offensive side, 8 on the defensive side, 3 on the special teams. Last year, 4-7, 4-5 in the Southland Conference, tied for 6th place. Season opener coming up on September 1st when the Lumberjacks take on Mississippi State. You can see that game on ESPNU. Southland Conference opener will be a couple of weeks later when they take on UIW out in San Antonio. Jeff Byrd, the interim head coach of Stephen F. Austin, now on stage with us. Great to see you, and welcome to the 2018 Southland Conference Media Day here in Houston. Getting ready for a new season. It's just around the corner. I know as a coach you're itching to kind of get out there and back on the field with these guys.
Ready to get started. We've had a great summer. Going through our process, our working out, our training, and all those things, those guys have done an outstanding job of being where they're supposed to be, doing what they're supposed to do. We talk all the time about accountability, and they have held up their end of the bargain to be accountable for what we're asking them to do. We have a great thing going here, as a newcomer, to get a chance to see this, the camaraderie with the players last night, and the coaches when we're over at Dave & Buster's playing the games, laughing and those things. It's a great deal, and we appreciate you guys being here to ask us questions and find out what your interest in our football program, and we thank you for those things.
What's the biggest takeaway, Coach, when you come off a season 4-7, 4-5? You're in many other ball games that could translate it into wins. What'd you build off of in the spring now as you inch closer to the start of fall camp?
Well, I think as you talk about our returning starters, on 11 you said that were on offense, and the defense has those things, but as a coach now that I'm looking through the entire media guide and I'm thinking about every player that we have, as I turn those pages, I'm looking at guys that played significant time. We had some injury issues last year that we got into. We had another quarterback that came in and played the entire thing. We lost one of our leaders last year, Trey Ramos, in the first game against SMU, and there was a true freshman that stepped up and played the rest of the snaps at that particular position. And those happened a lot of places within our football team. So when you look at the returning letterman and you look at the guys that have been involved and had meaningful playing time, then that's what excites me, is because when we look at the depth now that we're just trying to say, okay, now we have a fight for position. Who's going to be the starter? And anytime you have competition, I tell our guys all the time, my job is to make you uncomfortable. And the only way that you're going to improve is to be uncomfortable. Okay, if you're comfortable in your surroundings and you know that you're here, then I need to step on your toes. And that competition between positions is going to allow each other to step on each other's toes. So,
if you have any questions, as always with each coach, we open it up to questions. If you have one, raise your hand. We will get a microphone to you. Also ask, if you do have a question, state your name and affiliation as well before you ask your question. And I believe we may have one there on the left side, middle row. Take it away.
John Kruger, Daily Sentinel. Coach, your coaching staff brought in a lot of transfers this year. Talk about some of those and how you expect them to come in and impact your squad immediately.
Well, one of the reasons that we looked into that place was a little unique. Because we had so many of those younger guys who were having to get those reps, we needed to fill in a kind of a middle class, fill in the guys to help us with the leadership roles. And so we went out and got a couple linebackers. We got Quinn Jones out of East Mississippi Community College. We got Kirkland Joseph in the linebacker room that came. He was out of Independence Community College. Artevis Hendricks, out of Gulf Coast. So it was about 10 or 11 that we got on defense, because I had an older class and a younger class, and I was trying to get someone to help us work there. So we signed about 10 high school young men who've been around with us some this summer, and then we were able to put those guys in. So we were looking at building us that depth, creating that competition that we talk about, making it be just a little uncomfortable with different levels of guys that, some of our senior guys that have been maybe a starter for 2 years, he needed that guy that backed up that could push him and might take that job, so we hope to move to that other level. So.
Another question, front row, Chris Malkowski.
A lot of games between now and then on the schedule, but obviously one of the biggest games of the year happens right here in Houston with Battle of the Piney Woods, a game that the Bearcats have had control over for a long time now. How important is it for you guys to finally take that throne away from Sam Houston and really lay claim to this city? It's so important to your recruiting and everything else with Stephen F. Austin.
Obviously, the Battle of the Piney Woods is one of the greatest experiences I've had as being an FCS coach or defense coordinator as I was going through, because it has the feeling of a bowl game and all that. But I was talking to someone outside, and we talked about the fact that at Stephen F. Austin, we have their FBS opponent. And then we'll talk about schedule. Then it's Tarleton. Well, that's in-state. That means just as much. And then you've got the Battle of the Piney Woods, which is a fierce battle. Oh, yeah, let's throw Chief Caddo at the end. So when you're standing at Stephen F. Austin, and then you've got, oh, by the way, McNeese, Central Arkansas, I mean, here we go. Not to leave anybody out of that, but every game becomes the biggest game. But the atmosphere and those things that we have when we're down there in Ann Arbor, it's really an incredible sight to see. As a new coach coming in last year, to see that. It's, a lot of times when you go into those larger stadiums and you're playing in some places, that you don't have the atmosphere, you don't feel it, but that place you feel it, and then there's excitement in the air. So I think it's imperative that we get back in that match. I think it's imperative the fact that we know how long it's been. We don't speak, we don't wear that color, we don't do those things, because it is a true rivalry, and one of the greatest ones in college football when you sit and talk about the history and those things. So yes, it means something to us without question. Yes, we will talk about that on a daily matter, but being at Stephen F. Austin, there's a bunch of those other ones too as well. So,
another question up front,
I see Morrell, Port Arthur News. Coach, what was one of the first things you talked to your players about when you became the interim coach?
Well, we had a team meeting shortly after that was, and we talked about family, and and there's adversity that happens in family at all the time. And what you have to deal with a family is you don't push people away, you pull people closer. Okay, and I feel about these guys, and we're building that relationship, as around, but to be a family, you've got to stick together. And I think within our athletic department, our new athletic director, Ryan Ivey, John Branch, has been a great help. Dr. Patilla, everybody that's pulled together during this situation, it's caused us to be closer. And when you do that, that's how you succeed. That's the things that we were looking for. You got to understand that in a football program, it's nothing about the guy that gets. I told him, I'm just going to be the guy that calls you up and say what we have to say. I've got the ones that do the planning. But when we talk about realistically, it's the players' team. They're the one that leads it in the direction. I am just holding the steering wheel saying, where do you want to go? So that's what they got to understand. It's all about those guys. It's all about what their efforts and what they're going to put forth to it. And if they'll embrace the family at it, then the sky's the limit. We can accomplish whatever they want to accomplish.
Question, far left side.
Coach Caleb with KTRE up in Nacogdoches. A few weeks ago when we talked to you, you kind of had that deer in the headlights look the first day you got to talk to us after getting named interim. Has that changed a lot for you? Is it still kind of nerve-wracking?
Well, it's still day to day. I mean, I've talked to several coaches since I've been here, and when you talk about a 6-month period to put things together, or years, or you've done it for years and all that, when you're put in this situation 3 or 4 weeks ago, then there's a lot of planning that goes on and putting it in. And it goes back to what we talked about. It's about the assistant coaches that I have in the room, the guys that we lean on, the experience that we have. And we sit down and talk about everything that needs to happen and what needs to go on and how we think it needs to happen. And these two guys that are with us today, I mean, that's what we did driving down. What do you think? How do you think this should be? What's going on? And I think as long as we're working like that and we're pulling together as a family, and you're going to ask everybody's opinion, I just have to be the one that says yes or no. And that's helped out a bunch, just being able to communicate with the guys. So, yeah, it's still day by day. There's times they ask me a question and they go, what about, I said, we'll have to deal with that tomorrow because I'm dealing with this today. And still as a football coach, what I want to do at some point in times, I have to have, hey, stop. Hey, somebody cut some tape on. Let's look at some X's and O's. We'll do administrative stuff 45 minutes now, but right now I want to be the football coach. And so we're still having to budget our time to get those things done.
Again, if you have a question, raise your hand. We'll get a microphone to you. Coach, talk about, defensive coordinator a year ago. Now you're in the interim role. Talk about the challenges of doing both. I assume you'll continue to call the things on the defensive side, if I'm correct there.
Yes,
talk about the challenges now that you're also the interim head coach as well.
The challenges, we're time constraints. That's what we talk about. But where we are as a staff right now, felt that we had continuity on the defensive side. And then we have Kevin Barbay, who I've spoken with him, and we're going to name him the offensive coordinator. So he's going to take over the offense for us. And then we have Jeremy Moses, which a lot of you are aware of. He's going to be our co-offensive coordinator. I think with those two guys being together and working together, that's going to give me a stable force, to handle that. Obviously, I've had some input and talk about things, and sometimes I tell them, I used to be an offensive coordinator several years ago, so that makes me dangerous when I ask those questions. But, I know as a defensive coordinator, hey, I don't like this. Why don't we try that? Or why don't we do those things? So, but I think we're in capable hands with those guys at the offense, and our defensive staff is intact, so We've had a year to kind of put those things together. Josh Lawson coaches my linebackers and known him for a while, so he kind of knows exactly what I want, and, we have great guys on that staff, but he's kind of going to help me handle that.
Good balance.
If I have to be somewhere else or, something else comes up, so.
I think we had another question in the back here. Go ahead.
Yeah, Paul Taylor, Hanson Broadcasting. Coach, I know you've been in your position a short period. You've hit the floor running. Good things have been said about you, but I know you've been doing a lot of evaluation. Looking at your recruiting class coming in, do you feel like it's pretty strong, and do you feel like any of these guys coming in are going to be able to help you this coming football season?
Well, we've had them around for some in the summer and got to see the guys run around and work out. I think we did a good job in East Texas. What jumps out, to me, we got two safeties out of center and one out of Lufkin that I think will do a great job. Jeremiah Davis and Jatarius Evans. I think they'll do some really good things for us as we're coming. When you take 10 high school freshmen, okay, and coaches will tell you, we're better off if we redshirt those guys. That doesn't mean we haven't had the luxury of doing that, but we're better off if we give them a year to grow and do those things. But real excited about the class, and we talked earlier about some of those the transfers that came in, and what you're looking for is a balance. You're looking for a way to build your roster so you don't ride the ups and downs, and that's why we had to go in certain places and do some things to get that balance. So, like I said, in my last year, there were times when on defense we had 6 true freshmen on the field. Now, hey, they got to go. It's time to wake up. It's just like sudden change. What we went through. It's time for you to play. That's what happens. But we hope to kind of let those guys grow up, and we kind of filled in some of those gaps that we don't need them right now. But if they're ready, they're gonna play.
All right, one more question before we toss over to Lincoln. Coach, being the defensive coordinator a year ago, you saw what you guys could do. You've got one to your left right over there, pretty good one in Ryan Woods. Talk about him, what you saw out of him last year and what you expect from 2018.
Well, Ryan we dealt with an injury earlier in the season, and that injury, though we were just missing a couple weeks, and what we missed most from Ryan is Ryan's leadership. Ryan is the guy that helps carry us and put us together, and I pick on Ryan all the time. Ryan's a really talented football player, but I tell him all the time it's because of that leadership. It's because of those things that you out there, and you're the glue to hold us together. And Foster's always also with us, and that's the guy we're looking for to hold those things together on offense. So many times when you're looking at as reporters or fans and things like that, you're going, well, maybe that player's a little bit better, but the chemistry part of it, that's the guy, that's the glue that holds it together. That's the guy that takes care of it when the bullets are flying and tries to get it calmed down for him. I can't say enough about these two young men. Several other guys on our team are in those roles, but when we talked about who we needed to come up here and represent us, I thought those were the two guys. Foster went through his injury last year and was there all the time, and what can I do, and how can I help, and those are the things you're looking for. That's what you build a family around, but the big brother. And that's what I hope these two young men right here can be for our football program.
All right, I'll catch up with you in just a couple of moments, get your take on your schedule, and also you saw the Southland Conference a year ago, your thoughts on the conference as a whole. Right now, let's toss it over to Coach's left. Check in once again with Lincoln Rose, standing by with a couple of special players from Stephen F. Austin.
Yeah, Randy, of course, again, we have Ryan Woods as well as Foster Sawyer, the linebacker and quarterback, respectively. Injuries were a talking point last year, certainly could have completely defined the season, but Ryan, you bounced back, and there was a stretch, I believe, 3 straight weekends where you all had top 25 opponents, and you still almost culminated it up there in Conway, Arkansas, by nearly knocking off a top 5 team when it was all said and done. This was not a group last year that was making excuses.
Yes, sir. Shoot, and we're not too far, but we know where we need to go. We know the work that we need to do to put in. With 11 guys coming back on offense and 8 guys coming back on defense, those close losses still stick, those close wins still stick, those big losses still stick. So we carried all those into the offseason and put that into work, carried that into the spring and also into the summer.
Meanwhile, Foster, last summer, trying to bounce back from a knee injury. Ultimately, 2017, you sit out with season-ending surgery. But how did you manage to try to balance both your own personal needs of recovering and trying to get past that most recent injury, but also still being in the fold with the team and being a presence?
Yeah, I mean, that's the toughest part with an injury like that is you got to get yourself right, but at the same time be around the guys. And that's the whole reason why I play this sport is football brings that camaraderie and that togetherness. And so I knew that I needed to control what I could control in order for me to be who I need to be for this season. So this summer, this is really my first summer to truly be around the guys and 7-on-7 and get to know them more, because last year I was rehabbing all the time. So I'm even more excited than last year and healthier. So it's just great to be around the guys and compete. So.
Everybody was constantly talking about how last year was really going to be a year that you all took your biggest stride under this current coaching staff. I know they were eager for you to take over the reins, but you look for a chance for a silver lining, and it is the fact that now there is more experience at quarterback coming into this year. What does that kind of competition, that kind of now added depth mean to you as an individual if you can secure that starting role and move forward?
Yeah, I mean, us quarterbacks, we all know in that quarterback room, Jake and the newcomer, Josh Covey, I mean, we know that the best man will be on the field, and we all have a role, and it's a healthy competition, and I think the more that we make it about our team, the more that we compete with each other, then when it comes Saturdays, then we got each other's back, and it's all about not the guy on the name on the back of the jersey, but the SFA. And so once we know that, then it'll come easy on Saturdays.
Ryan, it's easy as a linebacker to go unnoticed if the team's final win-loss column doesn't look the way you want it to, but you wind up being preseason all-conference this year. People have taken notice of the time you've put in. Obviously, your own coach excited for what this year could spell out for you as a senior. But when you see your name officially there, preseason all-conference, what kind of satisfaction can you take from that, and how can that motivate you even further this year?
Well, I started this journey as a walk-on, so when I see that, it's really exciting. It's an honor that coaches across this conference noticed my play, because as a walk-on, you set small-term goals. You know, you want to stick on the team, you want to stand out to the coaching staff that's there, and so to get on the field and impress the coaches outside of Stephen F. Austin, that was really cool. That was a great honor, and I appreciate that. But that mentality of a walk-on from a few years ago hasn't changed. You know, I can't be satisfied. I have to be a leader, and being a vocal leader and leading by example is big for me, and it's really exciting.
I know coaches in this league have had to consistently update their scouting report. You continue to find ways to improve. What's your biggest stride this offseason? Where's your most recent improvement?
Man, we're conditioning and working on the little things, you know, making sure I'm not taking false steps, getting in the film room, getting in better shape, because I want to be one of those guys that doesn't have to come off the field, and one of those guys that you look at on film and you don't know if he's tired or not. And I wanted to focus on getting in the right direction when the ball is snapped. You know, sometimes I find myself false stepping, not doing the things that could get me to the ball faster, even though I made a few plays. But I know that those little things will help me make more plays.
We talked about, Foster, how you're a leader, if nothing else, by default because of you being a veteran and some of your experience. But Coach Moses, I don't know if you know, but he had a little bit of success at this level wearing purple. What's that relationship? What's that dynamic like?
No, I mean, we're always joking around and stuff and talking about how much he brought to the table at SFA, kind of set that pathway for us. So, we joke around that us quarterbacks are going to break his record one day, but that's the goal. But the ultimate, it's all healthy competition. But Coach Most, I'm excited for him to bring him what he can to this offense this year, and iron sharpens iron. So.
We know about Tamarick Pace, but who are some other guys on the offensive side of the football that we're going to, if we don't already know their names, we're going to start learning about pretty quickly?
There's a lot of new guys coming in, like Remy, the new JUCO guy, and some other receivers, and Jalen, running back. I can go on and on, but don't want to spoil the fun yet. But we got a lot of weapons, and so it's my job, or us as a quarterback's job, just to get the ball to them, let them be athletes.
Ryan, last night a chance for you guys to have some fun and also interact with some of your fellow student athletes at the other schools. I didn't notice all the purple teams coming together as a coalition, but another coach mentioned that over at Dave & Buster's, a chance to just kind of relax for a moment. Where do you think your strong suit was last night?
Man, between Pac-Man and the Halo games, I think my strong suit was just hanging out with the guys and getting to know these guys better, man. It's cool that I know we're all grinding during these summer times. It's late, it's close to fall camp, so our bodies are sore from all the hard lifting and running we've been doing. So I'm sure for a lot of guys to get away from their schools and come down to this great city and hang out with each other a little bit, get to know each other, it was all great fun.
We mentioned how close you all came in some really big games last year. You think you all were able to appreciate just how close you were to having a very successful season and now even closer this year?
Yes, sir. Those losses stung really bad. So, like I said earlier, we carried that into the offseason. We made sure that what we were doing every day was helping reach the goal that we set, which is being conference champions, going into the playoffs and doing big things this year, So we definitely remembered everything from last year.
Foster, because of SFA's rich history, it seems like every game's a rivalry game with something else on the line. As was mentioned earlier, there's a certain stadium here in Houston that you'll be playing a game in. Are you going to make sure that you detour on the way by the NRG before making your way back to Nacogdoches?
Yeah, might have to, but like Coach said earlier, this conference is very tough, and I'm not trying to make it about one team, but more about SFA and what we can control in one game at a time, and hopefully lead to one championship. So I remember sitting at home and watching that, definitely that Piney Woods game, and being ready and pumped for this my senior year for that game for sure, though.
Yeah, always a year where everybody around the Southland Conference, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, everything seems to stand still tuning in. Randy, I know you always have a blast and have that date circled on your schedule.
Absolutely. A fantastic atmosphere always at NRG Stadium. Appreciate that. We do look forward to that. And you heard some of the comments from Foster and Ryan. What do you think about their enthusiasm, their focus? They're ready to get the job done.
Well, they are, and there's a bunch of guys back home that are probably watching this thing, seeing what we're talking about, that they're doing things right. You and I were talking about that just a few minutes ago, to have guys that they're being where they're supposed to be, doing what they're supposed to do. It's what you talk about as a coach all the time. And I know I'm a little cliche-ish, but obviously it's rubbed off a little bit because I hear it coming from those guys. But I'm very, very proud of these two young men and looking forward to their leadership because they've showed it just through everything we do.
On the defensive side, Alice Ward, talk a little bit about him. First team all preseason, all conference as well. And you just looked at me a few minutes ago. You said, that is a football player. Talk a little bit about him.
As in the coaching profession, when you look around, the best compliment you can give to a young man is he's a football player. I mean, he can do anything. He would have an opportunity to possibly be our best running back. And no, Alizé, not today, because he asked me about that. Every time he sees him, he plays safety for us. Runs some thing in the back end, returns kicks, thinks he wants punts, throw me a pass.
He just wants to be out there.
And the sad thing about it is he'd probably be pretty good at every one of them. So, he brings some leadership to us. He's got some game-changing ability, and we're going to use his skills in some different places and give him a chance.
All right, let's talk about your schedule a little bit as you get off and going here. September 1st is your opener. Talk about getting the season started at Mississippi State. Big test right from the opening week.
Well, being a Mississippi guy, I'll be fired up about going to the state. We'll have to listen to a bunch of loud cowbells and things that go on. The thing that you look at is you get in the situation I am as interim head coach, and you look at that schedule and you go, well, I'm from Mississippi. I hear how they're telling me this might be the best team Mississippi State's ever had. The defensive line is good as this, but hey, we're going to go play. And got an opportunity to play there a couple of times, but when I was at somewhere else, and you want to see how the kids stand up and in that atmosphere. And you know, if what we're talking about is fighting through adversity, and what we're talking about is holding together, that's a great test for us. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm ready for the cowbells to ring, and let's go see what the Lumberjacks can do.
There you go. You got a taste of the Southland Conference a year ago when you joined this SFA program. Talk about what you saw week in and week out from the programs here. And again, looking at the schedule, there's a point at 3 consecutive weeks. You got McNeese, Sam Houston, and Central Arkansas back to back to back.
Well, thank you. Conference took care of us.
What a reminder.
They took care of us right there during that stretch. But
what did you see last year, though, as a defensive coordinator going up against some of these really nice offenses that they bring to the table each Saturday?
Well, great athletes. You see great athletes on both sides of the ball. Coach was talking about earlier, the difference that from the OVC where I was in is, look, it's really up front. It's the offensive and defensive lines. You know, skill guys are everywhere, but when you start talking about the technique and the fundamentals and the physicality of those things, not at any one school, we're talking about, you know, every school that you line up with have those things. And to be sitting here and say that we had 3 teams in the playoff last year, should have been 4, I'll say it, because played against all of them, and McNeese might have been the best of the 4 that we played against. And so when you're putting those things together, but to have the schedule and have the conference that there's a chance for 4 teams to get in the playoffs, and you know, you look at that, and you can be the 5th place team in this conference and have a really good football team, but just not good enough. Right. Not good enough. So, you know, the thing we got to do at SFA is try to build that up and get out of that place and get in there where we're talking about being champion contenders. And that's what we talk about every day. What are you doing today to give us an opportunity to win a championship? And, you know, if you're one of the best things about FCS football, and it's what we explain, is we get the opportunity every day to prepare to win a national championship. You know, no disrespect for any program that are in FBS, but there's some just because of their location or just because of what they're not going to get a chance to win the true national championship. So I think this level does a great job of giving us an opportunity to prepare to win that. And if you're the best on the field each day, then you're going to have an opportunity to be a champion, not just by what somebody else said or somebody else thought or a sports writer said this one was better than the other one. You're going to get a chance to win it on the field, and that's the best thing there is. That's why I love this level.
I want to ask you about the support in the community of Nacogdoches, Lufkin Nacogdoches, to support SFA football. And I know the administration is totally behind winning. You got a new athletics director as well. Some positive things.
Well, in the community now, it's great to see all that purple and purple haze hanging on the board. It's our job to make sure that we put a better product on the field and we win some more ball games to get some. They do a great job supporting us. We've been one of the tops in the Southland Conference in attendance and all that stuff. We got to fill the rest of them up, and we have to do that. And that's what we talk about the guys. They deserve it, but they have to do it to deserve it. So all the time, what are you going to bring? What do you want out of this deal? How are you going to shape what we're doing now?
I know it's been nonstop since you took over as interim head coach. Probably very little sleep between now and when practice starts, right?
Been very little sleep since then. So I had a question earlier that asked me about my golf game and what was my handicap. My handicap's 0 because I haven't swung a club. I don't even know where it's at. But it's been a fun ride, and it's like I said, it's day by day. We got to just make sure we're handling things as we go.
Very good. Congratulations. Enjoy the day here, and appreciate it. Good luck this season.
Thanks.
You guys get it going here at Mississippi State. Appreciate it.